Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'll also talk about a couple of challenges, and all of us are grappling with the same challenges, and therefore I'll talk about some of the conversations we've had at the Goa Institute of Management, and a lot more personal reflections. So this is not, again, let me say, this is not a GIM view. This is more a Ajit Parulekar kind of individual view. So as all the other speakers, so I had anticipated that I'm not going to be the first one. And therefore, I looked at a lot of the things that were likely to be covered before, I get my shot at it. And therefore, I'm not going to talk about things that others have already talked about. So two major issues really are multidisciplinarity. And the other one is the size, the magic number of 3,000. Both of them firstly need an enabling environment. And for standalone business schools, the IIMs have different challenges as compared to PGDM institutions too. We have to deal with a regulatory framework which is evolving. And therefore, in the transition period, it's really, really difficult to know what comes next. For example, conversations right now are happening on autonomous institutions getting degree granting, possibilities. So, and also not just degree granting, but also possibly the opportunity to go beyond management. And therefore, till there is clarity on that, in transition, it's really difficult to say what are you going to do. And therefore, all of us are therefore, forced to look at all the options and work on all the options at the same time. So at the same time, you're looking at what if the autonomy that we are expecting is going to be limited in a way that it's not going to work out for us. And therefore, we look at the possibility also of becoming, the university at one hand. For those that's possible to do something like a cluster, I can tell you, forgive me being blunt, but I sit on the board of a public university and also on a standalone affiliated college. I'm telling you, the cluster thing right now, there's a lot of chaos, right? That you're forced to become part of clusters and many unanswered questions there. So right now it doesn't look like a great possibility. So in terms of going, let's say, the university route and becoming a multidisciplinary teaching university, all of us have an option of one of two right now, which means either you become a deemed university, which is central, or you become a state university. Challenges are different, of course. All of them would require the same magic number, so that becomes common. But for depending on your institutional strength, where you are right now, some options will work better for you and some will work, I would imagine, for example, IMT or Jaipuria, because they have multiple campuses in different parts of the country, state university has a jurisdiction challenge. And therefore, if you're going to become a private state-private university, you'll have to look at where you stand and how that works up. Similarly, there are individual institutions where the society has multiple institutions beyond management, and therefore probably you have a different model that can work out. And if you're looking at a state-private university, luck also plays a role there. It depends upon which state you are in, because there are states, if your state is not conducive to a private university, there are states that have a very high entry barrier, and there are states that don't have an entry barrier at all. And therefore, that's going to be something that's going to be, so for example, in Goa, we are yet to have the first state-private university because we have a 2020 Act. And therefore, the requirements are very different from something like, let's say, like a Tamil Nadu, which requires, if I'm not wrong, like 100 acres of land and a sizable amount of a corpus to be put in place. And therefore, depends on where you are. You're going to be looking at two separate boats that you have your feet in. One is autonomous, and the other one is becoming a multidisciplinary university, state or deemed. Just a question, kind of musing kind of in my mind is, if you look at the best known Indian institutions globally, they're all single discipline, right? Whether it's an IIT or whether it's an IIM or whether it is AIMS or whether it is NID, our best institutions are not multidisciplinary as yet. And therefore, I think that's the thing that we would also look at, that how do we protect our global positions, our unique competitiveness, and manage at the same time. So this is one part about the structure we're going to take. The other on multidisciplinarity, and assuming that we get degree granting status and you can do undergraduate education and things like that. So the question on multidisciplinarity that's on my mind right now is, it's great to have multidisciplinary. So we'll have to draw, I mean, all of us will have to draw a right balance between what you call as general education, kind of a more liberal education that kind of ends up with having much better quality of citizenry. And at the same time, how do you balance specialization at the same time? Because employability is linked to specialization, right? And therefore having, the right mix there, and especially if I look at, starting undergraduate education, I have similar views on the BBA as some of the points that Varun spoke about. But I think also undergrad, when you're looking at what are we seeing undergrad as? Are we seeing it as preparing people for grad education? Or are we preparing them for life and employment and career and things like that? And the fact that we are graduate schools now getting into undergrad, I think, there's a likelihood of our inclination being towards the former. We don't have them completely ready for industry and for markets and things like that, but, see that as really a route to graduate. And that's a question I think, most of our institutions will have, and therefore choosing about, which particular route that will take. Assuming we remain to be a standalone institution and have to bring in multidisciplinarity, I think it's fantastic. I mean, in the morning when Soumitra was talking about revolution that are happening in technology, some directly related to what we do, and other things not as directly related to, like, on the entire biological side. So we run healthcare management programs, so we still have some relationship there. I think it's important that graduate students are aware of things that they see as peripheral, and therefore bringing in STEM, bringing in humanities, bringing in, that kind of multidisciplinarity is important. And if you don't, therefore, go the university route and remain standalone, largely management discipline, focused, your ability to be able to attract, retain, and maintain talent in those spaces, at least internally, would be very, very difficult. And therefore, I think, it's going to push us a little bit more if you want to be truly multidisciplinary towards probably the university. So these were a couple of, thoughts, a little hazy right now. As it would be, NEP, we still have a lot of clarity to come in. Look forward to the Q&A. Thank you.